Well, good day to you. It is October the 27th, 2024. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are. My name is Gary Willing, and as always, I want to welcome you to Search for Signs. And as I always like to do, just kind of let everybody know who is new that if you want to know more about who and what Maitreya is, you want to know more about the Masters of Wisdom, perhaps know more about the priorities of the teacher, the best thing to do is to read more about this information for yourself. Now, I've included links in the description portion of every one of these videos to hopefully make it a little easier for you to do that. I do recommend the Share International site because you can get the best background information there than you can anywhere else, but there's also a YouTube channel that I recommend. The link is right underneath that one because there's an hour-long video of Benjamin Creme himself talking about this incredible story that can hopefully help you see if there's any truth to it. That's why I put it in there. And every one of those websites, the information on those websites are free. So don't have to worry about that. Now, you want to come back and join the discussion? Let me know what you think by posting a comment. You can email me your comment or question to searchforsigns@mail.com if you want to do that. But I think the best way to get a question to me is just post your question in the comment section, and then I'll try to answer it in the next video. So let's start with Yeshua is my Savior. I would love to interview you on my channel about Maitreya if you would be willing. So my last name is Willing, so I would be willing. And I put a reply in there. I don't know if you saw it, but just whoever this is, if you're listening to this, just email me at searchforsigns@mail.com and I'll get back to you and we'll discuss the details of where and when. It would be a very respectful interview. This is the other thing I want to talk about. It would be a very respectful interview about who he is, etc. I've been working on a series about him and who he is. And I would love for it to be a respectful interview, but it doesn't have to be a softball interview. You can be tough on me. That's fine. I enjoy tough questions, actually. So you don't have to take it easy on me in that way. But yeah, it would be respectful because I respect your view and hopefully you respect mine a little bit. All right. Can we boost the volume of the future videos? I thought I was. So when I listen to these videos on my phone or my tablet, I don't have a volume issue. But I do get comments like this from time to time, and I'm sorry. I don't know what to do other than just to increase the volume when I upload it, which I think I've been doing. Maybe I missed it a couple times, so I'm sorry if I did. All right. Let's see. Let's go to, is it David Jones? Yes. Wait, you actually believe this BS United Nations backed doggerel? Ascended masters are BS at best and at worst fallen angels. And is it Jinn? I don't know what that word is and don't really care to find out. Why do I believe what I'm saying? I guess is your question about the United Nations, whatever. I believe what I'm saying, and I do believe what I'm saying. And why I believe it is because I've had personal experiences with Maitreya. I've interacted with them. I've experienced his love and his wisdom. I've applied the teachings that he's given to me personally, and they've changed my life for the better. I've seen UFOs in my own life in the skies with other people around, so I know I'm not crazy. And they've confirmed that they've seen the same thing, that kind of thing. And so that's why I talk about what I talk about. But also, if you look at just the teachings of Maitreya, right? Like one of the things that he tried to teach me years ago that took me a while to eventually apply, but once I applied it, it changed my life, was when he told me, he said, I never judge anyone on whether they're good or bad. I only notice the good things that they do. And when I applied it to my life and tried to apply it to those, situations with those people that are perhaps giving me trouble or I'm critical of especially, I noticed that it softened the way that I looked at them. I started to love them a little bit more. I was more accepting of them, more open-minded of perhaps who and what they are and why they were the way that they were and that kind of thing. These are the outcomes of that, what I was trying to do by not judging them, but just noticing one or two good things that they were doing. And then I started to notice that they changed their view of me. And they weren't quite as critical or, standoffish as they were with me. They were a little bit more open and more accepting of me too. So it changed that too. So as with anything, Jesus said it the best. A tree is known by its fruit, right? You have an avocado tree in your backyard. You're not going to all of a sudden one year sprout bananas and the next year sprout apples. It's always going to be avocados. right? And the same thing goes with any teaching or any coaching. So if you're a coach and you're coaching an athlete, if a coach coaches an athlete and it changes their golf swing or their batting swing, or they're able to throw the football better or kick the football farther or whatever, right? Or jump farther with their long, whatever it is. If they apply the teaching of what the coach is saying and it improves their game, then that means the coach is a good coach. If the coach is coaching them all along and nothing's happening, and they're doing what they're saying and nothing's happening, or it's making it worse, they're running slower than they used to run or whatever, then they're probably not a very good coach, right? Well, it's the same thing with any kind of teacher, whether it's a music teacher, math teacher, whatever. You know, if your algebra teacher does not know how to explain algebra to you to where your algebra becomes easier to understand algebra and you start to pass tests, right? Then they're probably not a very good algebra teacher. So I applied not only the teachings that Maitreya has given to me personally that I've seen change my life, but I've also applied some of the teachings of Benjamin Creme's master that I read while I was reading his articles. Tried it. It's changed my life. Some of the teachings that Maitreya has given, like honesty of mind, sincerity of spirit, and detachment, those kind of things, I've tried to apply it to my life. It's changed my life. So there's something to it. That's the reason why I talk about it in the way that I do. But some of the experiences that I had were so outlandishly crazy. I mean, just very dramatically crazy, that there's no other way to explain it other than what Benjamin Creme said is right, is true. And then seeing something like the Norwegian spiral in the sky one night on the nightly news, just out of the blue, to go to Knoxville, Tennessee, and see the crosses of light in the windows of the church in Knoxville, Tennessee, changed my life. There's something to it. Something strange is going on. But when I listened to Ben, when I applied what he was telling me, it's changed my life for the better. I'm a totally different person than I was before I started doing this, started applying this information. And then if you look at what's really central to Maitreya's teaching for the world, the principle of sharing, I started to do a little research myself and look and go, wow, the one time that the masters said that we tried the principle of sharing, the Marshall Plan, it happened right after World War II, and it started, I think, because the United States thought that maybe if the United States didn't do something, that Europe would fall back into another war. Perhaps they thought that the communists were going to influence some of these nations because the infrastructure of these countries, whether it's political even or whatever, was just in a very susceptible state to listen to another view or something like that. So they decided to give excesses of their resources to help rebuild Western Europe. That's what the principle of sharing is. It's not giving money. It's not giving aid so that corrupt leaders just take the money. It was actually giving excess of lumber, of building materials and so forth for them to build their country back up. Once they started to build the hospitals and the roads and the bridges and the factories and so forth, using those excesses of resources that the United States gave, they started to give back in payment what they took. That's the principle of sharing, okay? But it wasn't anything that really is how it's going to look in the future in terms of the logistics of it, but it was a basic form of principle of sharing. Now, it only lasted for 4 years. But none of the nations that participated in that Marshall Plan have attacked one another since then. None of those nations have been at war or anything, or really have had any really major disagreements with one another. Now, it hasn't been perfect, but you could say that there's a goodwill relationship with those nations. The peoples of those nations trust the other peoples of those nations better. It's easier even for us to travel to Western Europe than it is perhaps to say to go to Iraq or North Korea or something, or Iran, right? Or Cuba, but it's easier for us to go to those countries, right? So, and that just, even 75 years after it ended, right? But what would have happened? And this is the question I always pose. What would have happened had the United States and Western Europe done it with every country, and every country participated in a global Marshall Plan back in the 50s, and then it stopped in 4 years? What would our world look like today? Well, maybe we would trust other nations like Iran better, or Iraq or Syria or North Korea. You see what I'm saying? Maybe we would trust them better. But then what would have happened if we had started the Marshall Plan globally and never ended? What would the world have looked like then? I think we would be looking at a totally different history. We'd be looking back at a totally different history. I don't think the Cold War would have existed, or it would have ended the Cold War, because we would have started to trust those countries too, like Russia and the Eastern European bloc. We would have trusted them better. We would have trusted Cuba. There wouldn't have been the Cuban Missile Crisis, perhaps. There wouldn't have been the building of the Berlin Wall. That would have never happened. There wouldn't have been terrorism that happened in the 70s. There wouldn't have been this war between Palestine and Israel that has happened, that's been going on for decades, perhaps. Hunger would have been eradicated because there would have been enough food for people to eat. We would have been giving excess food to those countries that needed it. There wouldn't have been terrorism. Maybe crime would have gone down. But it's true to say that there would at least be goodwill amongst those nations. And then perhaps we wouldn't have seen 9/11. We wouldn't have seen this war on terrorism. Perhaps the United States would not be in such a debt that we are in today. Trillions of dollars in debt, had it not been, because the majority of that debt is coming from the military buildup, and trying to maintain the military that we have. So we wouldn't have had to build this. There wouldn't have been this need to build this military in the way that we did if we trusted everybody. You see what I'm saying? So we would be living in a totally different world today had we started it with every nation and kept doing it. I think it's true to say that. So anyway, but that's the other thing too. So that's the teaching that Maitreya is saying. So when we do try it, I think we're going to see that it works. So we're going to try some more, we're going to try it again, and we're going to try it again, and we're going to keep doing it this time. And then in 75 years from now, we're going to be living in a totally different world than we're living in today. That's why I talk about it. But thank you very much for the comment. Alrighty, and let's see. This is coming from James. I'm sorry, Gary, I watched a Krishnamurti video. He was asked about if God exists, and he just didn't answer the question at all. It was meaningless talk. I hope Maitreya doesn't talk like this. I hope he is specific, practical, inspiring, and helpful. P.S. You talked about selfishness, Gary, and you have to be selfish in order to survive. All right, so the Krishnamurti video that I watched, entitled, Does God Exist? So I'm assuming that's the same video you talked about. He did answer it. If you're listening to this, James, it seems to be I don't know. I'm listening to something totally different than you're listening to, I guess is my point. If you don't believe God exists, that's fine. I think it's a non-starter, because if you just look around you, there's something going on. Something created this. It might not be the Christian God that did it. It might not be the Muslim God that did it. It might not be the atheist view of what God is that created the universe, but something created this. Something. I mean, something's going on. So to me, you can touch your furniture, you can touch your head, you can touch your nose. There's gravity, there's up, there's down, there's right, there's left. Something's created this thing. What created it? Well, I think that something is God. Now, we put an ideological spin on it, but that doesn't mean anything, and that's why I think the Buddha said what he said. There's no religion higher than truth. There's no ideology higher than truth. But what is truth? Is Maitreya here to teach us that truth? I don't think that the truth can be taught, really. It can only be experienced and known. He can only offer clues into how to get to it. So to say something's a tree does not make it a tree. It's just a clue to what you're trying to say, right? So the truth is that something is allowing this all to exist. Out of that nothingness, something came. That nothingness is what Maitreya would say is God. Now, even that is not the truth. That is just a clue to the truth, James. What I think Krishnamurti, because like I said, watching the video, I was quite inspired by what he said, right? Learned a lot by what he said. He was saying that people's view of God is really who and what they are, which is the same thing that Maitreya said when he said, as man so relates to man, does man relate to God. He just put it in a different way. And he was talking about it in terms of India, but you can say it in terms of a Christian view of who and what Jesus is. He said there was 300,000 gods in India. I would say that that is not even close to being true. I think there's a God for every person on this planet. And it's because each and every one of us are different. Each and every one of us are seeing something different. But from the earliest animal man to now, we've always looked to a creator, but that creator's changed over time because we've changed over time. Initially, it was a god of the hunt, a god of the feast, a god of nature, and those kind of things. And now we're not so much in nature. We're living a different life, so our God is different. But my Jesus is totally different than a evangelical Southern Baptist minister's view of Jesus. We use the same name, right? But why is their Jesus different than my Jesus? Well, they would say their Jesus is right and mine is wrong. Their view of Jesus is right and mine's wrong based on the Bible, based on some chopped up pieces of wood with words on them, right? Which are just the same thing, are just clues to the truth. The Bible is not the truth. The Bible is just giving you clues to the truth. Just as a Krishnamurti video is not the truth, it's just giving you clues to the truth. Just as the teachings that Maitreya will give to humanity is not the truth itself, it's just clues to the truth. We have to do the work to find the truth. The truth can only be known for us through the work. The truth can only be discovered and realized. It can't be taught, I think, is my point. I could be wrong. This is just the way I see it. But the Jesus of Marjorie Taylor Greene that sides with Trump, that thinks that the United States is the best country in the world, that blesses only America and true Americans and not the illegal immigrants coming in, I think is not Jesus at all. Why? Because I don't think that that's true. So obviously my Jesus doesn't have the same view as theirs. My Jesus agrees with me. Do you see what I'm saying? But is that the right Jesus? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? You have to ask Jesus when you see him. So it's all based on belief. That's what he was saying. It's as man so relates to man, does man relate to God. That's what Maitreya says. That's what he was talking about in there. So, and then he didn't say that God didn't exist at the end. He said, do you believe in God? And he goes, I don't believe it. He said he didn't believe in God. And it wasn't that he didn't believe in the existence of creation. He just doesn't believe in the God that most people believe God to be. Perhaps. Does that make sense? So I think he did answer the question, but that's just me, But if you don't believe in God, you're trying to figure out if God exists, to me, it's like, just look around. You know what I'm saying? Something's going on. You know what I mean? Anyway, but you can put a name on it all you want. Now, in terms of selfishness, and we need to be selfish in order to survive, yes, of course, that's what it was like. Competition is a part of the human existence, but it's not the end all and be all of who we are. So Maitreya is going to teach us how to live selflessly, to where you don't have to compete against one another. The institutions and the systems in place today are all built on competition and greed. Well, Maitreya and these masters are going to teach humanity how to build structures, economic, political, educational, healthcare structures that support the truth that we are one. The systems in place today do not support that. That's why they're dying. That's why we're seeing the systems crumble today. That's why our political leaders have no answer to the problems of today. Because the systems that they are voted into, they're trying to keep in place, were all based on the past. And that's why Maitreya is coming back now along with these masters to teach humanity how to build totally new structures based on the remnants of the past, based on the truth that we are one. And then when these systems in place help to reinforce that truth that we are one, when humanity starts to see itself as one through the principle of sharing, then and only then will we really know who and what God is. So that it all's interrelated, James. So, but thank you very much for the comment and your emails nonetheless. All right. Saint Spencer, if Maitreya is here, which he is, I'd like you to know it coincides with the Hopi prophecy. Thank you very much for that. His return also is very much related to the return of the Christ, very much related to the coming of the Imam Mahdi, the coming of the fifth Buddha Maitreya, which is predicted in the Buddhist texts. Growing up a Christian, I didn't realize that all these other religious groups were awaiting a teacher to come back, expecting him to come back in a different way, perhaps, but expecting a teacher to come back. According to the Ageless Wisdom Teachings, it's all the same teacher. So if you asked Maitreya when you see him, or if you could see him in the Asian community of London and you talked to him, and you asked him, are you the Imam Mahdi? Are you the Christ? I've been hearing from Benjamin Creme that you might be. He will answer it like this, because this is how he always answers it. He goes, oh, well, if I'm the Imam Mahdi for the Muslims, then what about the Christ for the Christians? What about the Messiah for the Jews? What about them? He said, these are just names that create nothing but confusion within the minds of humanity, because it creates division. He said, in reality, he's just a teacher. Getting back to the whole thing about the teacher is known by, the tree is known by its fruit. The teacher is known by its teachings, right? He is just a teacher, but a teacher in the broadest sense. So anyway, hopefully that helps. Alrighty. Timothy Tilton again. Have you seen the UFO videos all over TikTok? No, I have not, because I'm not on TikTok, unfortunately. I wish people could put two and two together. Now, I have seen UFOs in our skies. The thing about UFOs, and this is what I wanted to kind of end the video with. The UFO question is already starting to be answered, to where I think now it's not so as taboo as it was just 25, 30, 40 years ago. I remember talking about UFOs with my friends in school. I remember watching TV shows whenever they would talk about UFOs or whatever. It was always this kind of taboo thing, right? Now it's almost commonplace. Like, oh yeah, of course, of course the UFOs exist, because now everybody has phones, and if you see something strange in the sky, you can whip it out and film it real quick. The times that I saw UFOs back even just, 12, 13, 14, 15 years ago, I didn't have a phone that could film it. But there were other people around that could confirm that I saw it, so I know I'm not going crazy, right? Now, here's the thing that I think will be a revelation for humanity, is that the occupants of the UFOs are humanity. They're higher humanity, but they're humanity. And they're here on a spiritual mission. They're not here to hurt us or harm us or take us over or anything like that. And the fear that we've been accustomed to when referring to the UFOs is unjustified. Maitreya, I think, will be the one that will universally help dispel that fear. Once we see Maitreya on TV, know who he is, some reporter somewhere is going to ask him about the UFO question, and he's going to answer it in that way and say, they're not here to harm us. They've been here ever since the dawn of time. So if they were here to take us over, they would have taken us over millennia ago. So obviously they're not. Why are they here? Well, they're here on a spiritual mission. They're here to help us. Right now they're cleaning up the environment of all the pollution that we're creating. And if it wasn't for them, we would be dead, right? So the other thing too is they don't need to know about us. So they don't need to operate on us or probe us or, hypnotize us or interrogate us or read our brains or whatever. They don't need to do any of that. They already know who we are, because we are them. And they know more about who and what we all are than we do. So what's the point of analyzing us to know them? Does that make sense? They're just humanity, just like us. George Adamski said that any one of them could walk into a mall or a restaurant or a public place, and nobody would think the wiser of them, because they look just like we'd look. You know what I'm saying? So the Martians are shorter than us because there's more of them on that planet than there are on our planet, but they look like us too, but they're just short. And then some of them have been living among us for quite some time and working and serving along with the masters of wisdom for quite some time. And we don't, We don't know anything about them, other than the fact that they are coming from another planet. You know what I mean? But they don't look like beasts or like men in black or anything like. They look like us. You know what I mean? And they also are not coming from another dimension or another solar system. They're coming from our own sister planets like Venus and Mars, Jupiter and Saturn in the main, but some of the other planets, but mainly from those planets. But they're here, they're harmless, they know the laws of life, they know that if they harmed us, it would harm themselves in return. They know the law, all about the law of cause and effect. And one of the things that Ben brought up that I never really thought of is that the reason why the governments have withheld the truth about the UFOs for so long was not so much that they thought there would be a panic, as most movies think that governments, that's the reason why governments are holding the information back. It's because we wouldn't listen to the people in the governments anymore. We would listen to them. You know what I'm saying? So if we knew for sure that UFOs existed and that the occupants meant us no harm, we would ask them, how are you living the way that you're living? We wouldn't look to the Joe Bidens or the Donald Trumps of the world. We would look to them. We wouldn't listen to Elon Musk as to why, should we get off this planet and go move to Mars? We would ask them. And they would tell us all you have to do is just clean up your own environment and you're fine. Well, how do you clean up the environment? Well, let's show you how to do it, right? They have a technology that is clean, that's free for all of them to use. They can travel, I guess, they can travel all throughout our solar system, but I don't know if they can go beyond that, but there's talk that they can go way beyond that to see other sides of the galaxy and so forth that we can't see. They have a technology that can do that. So why would we listen to our world leaders? We would just listen to them, and then they would lose their power. That's why they've done everything they can to withhold that information, to keep us scared of UFOs. Now there's so much information out there, so many people talking about it, that they can't deny it anymore. The British government has gone so far to say to declassify a lot of that information because they don't deem it as a threat to their national security anymore. But Maitreya will be the one to let everybody know why they're here, that they mean us no harm. But the relationship between we have with them is only getting stronger by the day. And they will eventually, when Maitreya says, yes, we are a peaceful people, they'll give us freely the technology that they have. So we can power our cities and we can travel and regenerate organs just the way that they can. Now, if you go to Mars, if you go to Venus, you wouldn't see anybody because they're living on what's called the etheric planes, which is the 4 planes higher than gas on the physical, but they're on the physical plane. And that was proven by a scientist named Wilhelm Reich some time ago, not too long ago, but some time ago, where he proved the existence of the etheric planes. He called it the orgon, but he proved the existence of that. And the masters will talk about the truth about the etheric plane in the future with us, but that's where they're coming from. But they mean us no harm. They're here to help us. And the relationship and the truth about about not only the masters, but about the UFOs and our relationship with them will be a revelation for all of humanity for sure. I love you guys. You guys take care. I look forward to putting up videos in the very near future. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.